Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Well guys, today is finally the day that we're going to give this Landis 3S surface grinder of mine a little bit of a test run. So a little bit of story on this. We picked this up last year when I got several machines from an estate over in Alabama, and brought this thing home, and it has mostly just been sitting here. Now, back in January of this year when we had our scraping class, when Richard King came down, we actually took the head and the tables and everything off of this machine during the class and used it as an example on how to check a machine for wear. And the plan was we were going to scrape it in during the scraping class. But as it turned out, it has hardened ways in it. Which really is not a good candidate for scraping. But fortunately for us, it's good that it has hardened ways, because hardened ways are going to wear much less so than regular cast iron ways. And when we checked this thing really well using some alignment techniques that Richard was teaching us, it actually checked out pretty darn well. Was it perfect? No. But I'd be willing to bet that this grinder is actually in better shape than most old grinders out there as far as wear is concerned. Now, I have never used this machine. We put it back together. I've kind of just done some quick testing with it, getting the spindle running, et cetera, learning how to run the mechanisms there on the feed, but I have not ground anything on that. And today's going to be the day that we do our very first grinding job on this machine. So a little bit about the machine again here. It takes up to a 10-inch diameter wheel with a 3-inch inside diameter and up to, I think, an inch thick is what it says in the book. I've got, I think, a 3/4 inch thick wheel in here right now, and it's probably just a little bit less than 10 inches. This is a white wheel. It's kind of dirty, so it may be a gray wheel, actually. You know what? I think this is actually a new wheel. This is a gray wheel. So I'm not even sure what grit it is. It's a fairly coarse wheel. And my first job that we're going to do on this is we're actually going to grind the table down here. So we took the magnetic chuck off while we were working on this. And there's a good bit of rust down here. This looks to be fairly flat, but one thing that Richard King really kind of advised me to do was while we had it taken down here to go ahead and grind this thing in. I'm going to check the bottom of the chuck and decide whether we need to grind the bottom of the chuck. We may grind it as well, and then we'll have to grind in the top of the chuck to kind of get everything nice and flat. So I've got the machine. I'm hopefully where it's going to stay now. The very first thing that we did before we really ran this, and it says this on the machine somewhere down here, to make sure it is level before you run it. Machine must be level right here. So I took some time with my machinist level. This is on 3 points. It's got 3 set screws in it. I had to bring the back up a fair amount and then bring this corner in just a touch. And we've got this thing pretty darn flat right now. So that's done. We've got a grinding wheel on here. Really the next thing for us to do is to come in here and dress this wheel and get started on the grinding. So a little bit on the operation of the machine before we actually get going here. So first thing, you got your elevation here. This adjusts the height of the grinding wheel. There's 2 wheels on here. We got this one, which is a coarse wheel for moving it up and down fairly quickly. And then over on this side, you have a fine wheel. And you see that I turned this wheel several times before it turns this one. This one has the graduations on it down to a 10,000th of an inch. So that allows for very fine adjustments. On the surface grinder, of course, the table goes back and forth. I got a hand wheel here to do that, or I can do this manually. And this machine, of course, it has the slides here that will move the table in and out. Now, one thing that's nice about this machine is it does have an automatic mode, so you don't have to do it all manual. We'll show that in a minute. But when it comes down here and hits the cog right here, I've got my travel set. It flips it, and if you watch down here on the feed, it actually will feed it in, and you can adjust that with these screws right here. Trips it, we come back. Right now I've got it set for about a 30,000th feed moving in and out. And you can adjust in and out by just flipping this lever here. So anyway, let's fire it up and show it in operation. So this machine has a plain spindle bearing in it, which basically means it's like a bronze bearing. There's no ball bearings in it, which for ultra smooth grinding action, actually a plain bearing is superior over a ball bearing, because on ball bearing, as that thing rolls around, you actually can get a tiny amount of movement in it, where if you have a nice tight plain bearing, it's very tight, and when you're grinding something to 10,000th of an inch, a plain bearing is going to be the preferred way to go. Now it says over here, before you turn it on, when you're operating it cold, is you need to kind of warm that bearing up a little bit. There's an oiler here that we fill up. We get the oil dripping in there, which is dripping right now. And it says starting if machine is cold 3 or more hours since last operated, jog spindle 4 starts and stops at 10-second intervals. So we're going to kind of go through that process of warming this up. So I'm going to turn it on and just turn it off. We'll let it wind down, and I'll count to 10 and do that 4 times. I won't make you guys watch it all. All right, so we're running now, and to show you the operation of the machine table. Now, one thing you have to do is this handle that adjusts it manually, you have to pull it out. If it's in manual mode, it's going to spin this thing around, and that's dangerous. So you pull it out at 3 spins, and basically you just kick this handle over. Wrong handle. So you pull this handle up. That's what you do. There we go. And you can see the table engages and starts going back and forth. I've got it set for pretty much a full stroke right now, because we're wanting to grind this whole top up here. I can adjust these right here in and out if I'm doing shorter strokes, so it doesn't do quite as much. And just to double check, we're about 145. 85, so it's actually doing about a 60,000th jog, but I think that's going to be fine for just doing a grind on this. So let's get our wheel trued up. So to disengage it, you hit that lever. So I'm about ready now to go ahead and get this wheel dressed. This is a new wheel that I've got on here. It's never been used before, so it's probably got a little bit of run out in it. And anytime you put a change wheels on here, just because, you know, when you're grinding in 10,000ths of an inch, and you really just always want to put a fresh grind on anytime you change a wheel out, because just the variations in putting the wheel on, you can be off, you know, a couple of thousandths of an inch, and on a grinder that can make a big difference. So I've got a little diamond grinding burr or tip in here. This has got a little diamond on the end of it. Normally you just plop this down your magnetic chuck. Since we don't have a magnetic chuck on here, I've got it bolted down to my table. So I've already got my machine warmed up here. We're going to start it. And basically I'm just going to go ahead and drop this thing down. Now we're getting down close. I'm using my fine adjust now. I want to just get down to where I'm touching that wheel. And all right, I'm going on it. So we're going to go ahead now and just run across this. I'm going to come down about a 0.5 thousandth. Another 0.5 thousandth here. You can't really hear it, but it is, I can feel it. It's taking wheel off. I think we got it pretty well ground down. So this last one, I'm going to do a pretty coarse, pull it across real quick. Or I really kind of want to do is almost put like a thread in this thing. And that will give a little bit of, it'll actually help clear that wheel out or keep it from loading up. So I'm going to go ahead now and just bring that across pretty coarse. So we should have our wheel dressed. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this off and we'll be ready to start grinding. Well, slight change in plans, guys. The wheel that I had on here was not a full size diameter. This machine will take up to a 10-inch wheel, and I think the one I have was about 8.5 inches. And when I brought it down to the table, I didn't quite have enough diameter to actually grind the top of the table. And if you think about it, normally you have a chuck on top of this and your part on top of that. So even if you're grinding something, it's gonna be on top of this. Anyway, I put a full-size wheel on here. This is also a brand new wheel. It's a pink wheel, and I went ahead and I've already got it dressed and everything. I did that off camera, but that's the reason for the change. So now what I want to do is kind of get my height set. So I've just got a piece of paper here, and what I'm going to do is just bring down this wheel until it so right about there. You know, that's going to get me within a couple of thousandths of the table. And you know, not knowing how flat this table is, I might have some high spots in here that are a little bit higher, so that's going to get me probably about 3 thousandths off the table. In theory, so what I'm going to do now is just kind of real carefully come through here and kind of just map around my table, see if I'm hitting anywhere, you know. See if I've got a high spot on here. You know, so far I'm not touching, which is really what I want to see, which tells me that it probably was pretty flat to start with. So I think what we'll do is we'll just go all the way out here to the end. I'm going to bring it down. Let's just bring it down about 1 thousandth, and I'm going to go around here again and just make sure that I'm not hitting anywhere. I don't want to crash this wheel. I don't want to take off too much on that first pass. So, you know, this is just kind of, I'm just looking to see where I'm at. All right, we hit a little bit something right there. I saw a few sparks. So I think what we're going to do is, we may not be touching off much here yet. The hit on that screw right there is actually where it hit. And that makes sense because we actually took these screws out when we were working on this. And it probably didn't quite go down all the way there. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead, kind of get it all the way off the table. We'll get all the way down here to the end of the cycle. I'm going to feed down about another, anyway, we'll just do a full 1,000th. And let's turn it on and let it start working through. So we got just a little bit of a touch up here in this corner. I mean, it's just barely touching it right now. I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of let it go across this, and I'll bring you back once we get through this first pass, and we'll take another pass. So I won't bore you to death watching this. So we're getting down here to the end now, and as you can probably see up on this end, we've got just a little bit that's touching off, and on the very end over here, it's probably hard to see, but there's a little bit touching right in here. So it looks like it was barely touching a little bit on either end. We're actually catching up a little bit down here now. Right about in here it's touching. See some sparks about right in there. So anyway, we're going to come through with this one. Let this pass finish up, and probably take another 1/2 thousandth and just continue this process until we get the whole table cleaned up. All right, we're about to finish up our second pass here, and picked up some more on this end and also down here on this end. So I'm going to give it another 1/2 thousandth and just kind of sneak up on this till we get a nice clean finish all the way across. So as it is right now, I've ground about 1 thousandth off of the highest place that's on here. and that's the end of my stroke. It kicks out when it gets to a certain point, so go ahead and feed down a 1/2,000, change my direction, and we'll go the other direction now. All right, we're taking a little bit more of a cut now, going farther in. We've been grinding away a couple passes now, and still got just a little bit of a hole in here. I'm just making light passes, again about a 1/2,000. We're going to take another 1/2,000 right there, and we should be getting close. I don't know if it's going to clean up on this pass. It may take one more, but we should be getting real close. Let's go ahead and yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to clean up all the way across, but it's going to be real close this time. We'll let that take another pass across. Looks like this may be our last pass. So far we're cleaning up all the way across. So I think what I'll do is we'll go ahead and take this last pass here, and then we'll probably finish it up with just a really light cut, and I'm going to slow the feed down on here on the table and just take a little while to get across, but I think it'll get a little bit better finish. Not that this is a bad finish, but I'm just learning about this machine and playing with the settings more than anything right now, but we're just about to get it down to where it needs to be. All right, that pass actually looks really, really good. It cleaned up nice, but I think what I'm going to do, like I said, is I'm just going to feed this down, that's about 2.5 ten-thousandths of an inch, so about 1/4 of a thousand. And I've got my machine now in slow speed, and we're just going to go ahead and let it take its time and work its way across this thing. And take one final slow pass, and I think we'll be through. Well guys, I think we're going to call that done. The finish looks very, very good. I'm very happy with how this came out looking. And quite honestly, you know, I'm playing around with this and kind of learning this machine. There wasn't a whole lot of difference between the fast feed and the slow feed. So, you know, just learning this machine as I go. But I'm real happy with this. I mean, it looks beautiful. Well, I've run out of time for tonight. I need to get this video edited and get ready to upload, and haven't had a whole lot of time this week to work out in the shop, but so I think we're going to pretty much be a wrap for today. We have tested the surface grinder out. I've done my first grinding job. It looks good. My next step that I really want to do now is to really get in here and let's see how flat this actually is, you know. I just don't know. So we're probably gonna do a couple different things. I've got a straight edge over there that's perfectly flat. We can blue it up, come in here and actually see how flat this is compared to my straight edge, which is calibrated to my surface plate. So that'll be one thing I want to check. And then the other thing I want to do is probably put an indicator on here and run the tables back and forth and see how much, if we have anything going on here. You know, my concern is, you know, even though this machine we tested, it doesn't have much wear in it at all in the ways, there could still be either a little bit of a dip in this thing or a crown in this thing that it's actually grinding. So I want to see what we've got. Now, you know, this grinding job here was done to pretty much the full length of what this machine is capable of, which is was that 24 inches, I think? Let's see, so, yeah, so about 24 inches, I think it's 8 inches wide, so 8 by 24 is what this machine will do. you know, and most grinding jobs are going to be much smaller. My mag chuck that goes on here is also 8x24. I know some of you guys are saying, well, how come you didn't grind out here? Well, this is just a clamping area, so this is where your T-slot goes into. The chuck doesn't actually extend out over here. The chuck will all be on this ground area in here. So this area out here really doesn't matter, and it's beyond the travel of what this machine is capable of doing. So that'll be fine there. But we'll come back in. I'll probably do an inspection on this over the weekend, shoot a video, let you guys see what we got, and from there, hopefully everything's good and flat, and we'll be able to get our mag chuck mounted up on here and get it ground in as well. So with that, we're going to call this video done. So thanks for watching. We'll talk to you guys later.